On the night of March 29, 1991, William Kennedy Smith was patronizing a bar in Palm Beach, Florida, with his cousin Patrick J. Kennedy and Uncle Senator Ted Kennedy when he met Patricia Bowman. After talking, the pair left the bar and walked along the beach and eventually returned to Smith's house with the rest of their party. It was there, according to Bowman, that Smith raped her. Smith, notwithstanding, argued that while the two did in fact have sex, the act had been entirely consensual. Bowman, saying that she didn't want to be responsible for Smith hurting another woman, pressed the rape charge. The trial would begin December 2nd and continue through the 11th. The defense lawyers were Roy E. Black, and the prosecution was made up of Moira K. Losh. The jury of the trial was made up of 4 women and 2 men, and the presiding judge was Mary E. Lupo. At first, the prosecution had requested that Lupo allow 3 other women who claimed that Smith had sexually assaulted them back in the 1980s to testify. Lupo denied the movement, saying that the claims were not enough to illustrate an evident pattern of behavior against the defendant according to Florida law. This made Losh's job more difficult, seeing as that she could now rely only on the testimonies of the accuser. The prosecution's first witness was Ann Mercer, a friend of Bowman who had been present at the Kennedy residence on the night of the 29th. She said that Bowman had come to her after she had been assaulted and that she was literally shaking and looked messed up. She said she had been raped. However, during cross, defense lawyer Roy Black got Mercer to admit that she had been paid $40,000 by a tabloid network to reveal details of the night in question that she had failed to tell the authorities. He played a recording of Mercer making claims that contradicted her court testimonies. Black used this information to the defense's advantage by playing up the idea that Mercer was using the trial for personal gain and that her statement was not trustworthy. Losh then put Bowman on the stand. In cross, Bowman had difficulties recollecting other events from earlier in the week. When Black admonished these gaps in her memory, Bowman refuted that the only thing she could remember about that week is that Mr. Smith raped her. Black knew that he would have to avoid pushing Bowman too hard in order to not seem cruel to the jury, so whenever the witness appeared too stressed, he would call for a recess. While this proved to be a relatively successful hindrance on the defense, Black did manage to get Bowman to admit to a history of problems with men caused by one-night stands. The prosecution next called Senator Ted Kennedy as a witness, despite his obvious connection to the defense. The prevailing theory behind this move is that Losh believed she could adduce Kennedy's failings upon Smith, but regardless of motive, the prosecution's plan failed disgracefully. Kennedy spent his time on the stand generating sympathy for his nephew and their family, and he provided nothing of use to the prosecution's dispute. The defense's witnesses consisted primarily of forensics experts. Charles M. Seeger was an architect who contradicted parts of Bowman's story. He testified that if she had indeed been screaming as she had previously stated, the architecture of the house would have made it impossible for the other people present to have not heard her. Considering that no one had acknowledged any shouts, Seeger's account helped the defense's argument significantly. The defense also brought forth Professor J. Siegel to testify that the sand that had been discovered in Bowman's underwear had likely come from the beach, which supported Smith's version of events. However, Losh was able to counter this by forcing Professor Siegel to admit that it was definitely possible that the sand could have just stuck to their bodies from the walk along the beach, or that it easily could have come from the lawn. This significantly discredited Siegel's statements. William Kennedy Smith himself was next called to the stand. This proved to be a good move on the defense's part. Smith told his story in 29 minutes, which would be considered a short time relative to court proceedings, and, when asked by Black if he had at any time raped Bowman, he adamantly replied, "No, I did not." In a trial so firmly rooted in witness testimonies and appearances, Smith's calm reassurances were a crucial element in the defense's case. Smith also handled himself well, and Losh became aggressive with her questioning and cross. He calmly explained that on the night in question, Bowman had gotten angry at him when he accidentally called her Kathy instead of her own name, but she had calmed down by the time she went home. According to Smith, Bowman apologized for her behavior as she left the house and said that she had enjoyed herself. Seeing that her current strategy was not working, Losh began to accuse the rest of the Kennedy family of withholding the truth to protect Smith, which the defendant adamantly denied. Judge Lupo, who was becoming tired of Losh's theory, ordered that she cease that line of questioning. This reprimand only further harmed the prosecution's image in front of the jury. The jury only took 79 minutes to come up with a not guilty verdict. Most believe that the reason deliberations were so short was that neither defense nor prosecution had provided very much concrete evidence, as is only possible with most date rape scenarios. Two years later, Smith faced an assault charge after hitting a bouncer at a bar in Arlington, Virginia, to which he pleaded guilty. After he completed his 100 hours of court-ordered community service, Smith maintained a low-profile life, continuing to practice medicine.